Hello, everyone. This is Rob Golfi with REMAX, the Golfi team. Welcome to the Golfi Real Estate Show with host Stephanie Vivier.
Well, hello there, Rob Golfi. Another week has gone by. It has flown by. So great to chat with you again. Very interested to find out how your week in real estate has been.
Well, something came up, and it's in Niagara, and it's two properties that are together. And it's something I wasn't looking for. And this is how opportunities happen. Either you jump on it or you let it go by. And there are five other locations that I'm looking for commercial properties. Now, they may show up today. They may show up 2 years from now, 5 years from now. But when it does, I'm ready to jump on it. And so one showed up. And it's not really the area. Actually, I almost bought another one prior in the same area, but this one came up. And if the deal works out, I think I've got about a 30-40% chance of getting it. I'm doing a total proposal, and I'm hoping they like the proposal that I'm proposing. And if it works out, I worked out a good deal. If not, I'm okay. You know what I mean? Like, there's always deals out there. So never think, oh, I should have bought 2 years ago. We all say that. We all say that we should have bought. And I say it myself, even though I didn't get the deal. I should have gone up more on the price. But hey, you know what? You do what you feel comfortable at the time. And if you don't get it, you just feel sorry for yourself for about maybe a half hour. And then after that, you're good to go. You just wait for the next deal. But right now, I was just talking, but otherwise, these buildings are I think are a great asset to my portfolio that I have. And it just unexpectedly. Now, if another one shows up in one of the other areas this year, that's when I'm walking a fine line. I don't want to overextend myself, right? Like, because, I like to do one project at a time. Last year, I did 3 projects, and that really killed me almost, and that was very expensive. I was renovating 3 different projects simultaneously, and I'll tell you, I was writing checks like I just saw money coming out more than coming in. So it was a very stressful year last year. But
yeah, no kidding. Yeah. But I'm sure those around you say, "Oh, come on, Rob, you always get us in these situations."
I'm not afraid. You know that I'll tell you. I'm not afraid to jump in and do something. And but the one thing I just want to say one thing is that I was talking to somebody this morning, and I said, timing right now is to buy. And yeah, all agents say it, but it is. We are flatlined, and we're going to go through the stats about that. I'm going to show you why we're flatlining, but right now it's like flatlining. Basically, it's the prices. They're not going to drop anymore. We hit bottom. It's going to sit there. Now we're just floating along the bottom of the ocean, and it's just going to continue going that way until things change in the world, the market, and everything else. So, and I just said timing right now, and that market is going to change. Markets never stay the same. The market's going to go up, and when it does, it could be 6 months from now, it could be 2 years from now. But I am prepared to buy. Now, I always say, properties double every 10 years, but in the past 15 years, it's doubled less than 10 years, and then there's a correction, and it goes back up again. So anything I buy now, anything I own now in 10 years, chances are it's going to be worth double. So, the bigger the portfolio, the bigger the return. Now, I do take risks. I do jump in. I do work my numbers. And I'm going to tell you, in most cases, 99% of the time that I've purchased, and I've purchased in high markets, low markets, and balanced markets. And all those markets that I've purchased, I would say one market, one property, I actually lost a little bit of money on. Not a big deal because I've made money on other properties. And I broke even on another one. So of all the properties I purchased, and I purchased a lot of properties since I was 20 years old. My first one I bought, I was at 20 years old. And till today, I should count how many, but I know it's over 50. Maybe it could be over. So I've purchased over 50 properties in my adult life. And One, I lost a little bit of money, and it was about maybe I think 4 or 5% I lost on the value, and then another one I broke even. So I did pretty good, and I bought in all different markets. So I like it is the best investment out there if you're going to buy real estate. But I'm a person that usually buys and holds. Like I hold on to it. If my name's on it, chances are it's going to be very rare that you're going to see it up for sale. And because it's just part of my portfolio. But yeah, this came up, and I am going a little aggressive on the price, but I got a full presentation with it, like, you know, the things that I've done and everything else like that. We'll see what happens, and I will let you know probably in next week or the week after, 2 weeks. I'll let you know if I got it, and it'll be exciting, and I'll tell the whole story. The whole story on it. I'll give you
that's exciting.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything now because I don't need to create any more competition on these properties. I don't need anybody else coming in and checking these out and everything else like that. They're commercial properties, so I don't need anybody to say, hey, what's he talking about? If Rob likes it, then I think it's good. It's a good deal, so we'll see. So, but but the thing is, again, I got the stats out here. So I'm just going to go through some of the areas here in Niagara. So Fonthill, Pelham, okay? Like for some reason, now there's been a change in the system when it came to with the Niagara area with the stats. So the stats might be off just a little bit, but in a year from now, they'll be back on track. The Niagara board prior, the stats were held better, but now they amalgamated with another area. It kind of construed the stats. But last year, in March of 2024, there was 14 sales in Pelham Fonthill. This year there was 24. So I mean, they're up in sales and they're up in benchmark price. Now they did 830 last year. The benchmark price was $830,000. This year it's $862,000. So I don't know how accurate that is, just because we're getting stats from one system and then another system. Now Fort Erie, okay, last year there were sales of 97 sales in Fort Erie, and this is March, and 45 this year. So they're 54% down, and also they're 10% down in benchmark price. So last year it was $595,000 in March. This year it's $535,000. Grimsby sales are down. Last year they were 55. This year it's 32, and they're down 4% on benchmark price, 825 to 790. Now, if you look, the last 6 months in these areas, it goes up and down, 3% up, 3% down, 5% up, 4% down. So let's say Niagara Falls. 120 transactions last year, 82 this year in March. So they're 32% down. They're down 5% benchmark price. So last year in March in Niagara Falls, 613,500. This year it's 582,500. So they're down 5%. Now, next month it could be up 5. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's based on last year. But I'm going to go through 6 months quickly for you. Niagara-on-the-Lake, forget about Niagara-on-the-Lake because it's always up and down like a yo-yo there. Port Colborne, Wainfleet. 51 sales in March of 2024, 51 sales. March of 2025, 29. So they're down 43%. They're down 7% in benchmark price. It was $549,000 March of last year. It's $512 this year. St. Catharines, 200 sales in St. Catharines in the month of March. This year, it's month of March is 146, so down 27%. So $580,000 last year in March, benchmark price. This year is $590. Now, Welland, 112 transactions last year in March. This year it's 48, 57% down. So last year, $575,000 was the benchmark price. This year it's $607. It's up 6%. Kind of hard to believe. So it's all over the map. But now if you go to let's say St. Catharines. I'm going to read this off to you. In the last 6 months of St. Catharines, the benchmark price, October, $590,000. November, 561,000. That was a drop. December, 565,000. January, 594,000. February, 590,000. March, 590,000. See how it's bouncing around a little up and down like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're bouncing around along the bottom of the ocean floor, you could say. But that will change. That is going to change down the road. When is that going to happen? We don't know. This is exactly what happened in the 90s, and we're going through it. But the 90s, it was like a 9-year stretch. But with us now, it's just going to be maybe a 3 to 5 year stretch, just because of the times how they are. But yeah, it's crazy. So timing wise for the buyer, knowing that the way the market is, it is going to go up. But when is that? We don't know. And when it happens, that's when everybody jumps in, and that's when everybody should not jump in. That they should have jumped in maybe 6 months earlier or a year earlier. So, and that's why I'm not afraid to buy no matter what market it is, because if I buy in a busy market, and I've bought properties in busy markets, I have, and I've overpaid in some of those busy markets, but every single one of those properties that I paid in busy markets and like booming markets, my properties are worth way more now than they were in those busy markets. So I'm not afraid to do that. And because it's brick and mortar, everybody needs a roof over their head, and like I said, timing now is a good time to buy.
So when we go in on these properties, if we say, okay, well, this is good, this is flat, so we've got a little bit of time, we can look around, maybe, do some inspections, things like that we haven't been able to do in the past few years. What's the strategy, Rob? Now, you mentioned you have like a whole package for your commercial property. Do you need to come up with that when we're doing residential? What would you say?
I have residential also, same thing. But right now, the hard thing about residential, it is expensive to buy, invest, and have rental income to cover the expenses just because of the interest rates. It is tough. So you really got to look for a deal. So good places to look for are in Niagara. Niagara is probably the best place. And you got to find properties that have probably an apartment in the basement. So the homes that were for rent before that you were able to rent the whole house, those are going to be gone. So now when people are looking to rent a house, they're not getting the house. They're not getting the basement included. They're getting just the one floor, which is tough because that extra basement storage area was perfect. Either you had a rec room with that or you had that, but that's not happening as much anymore. It's hard to rent a whole house now, and you're paying big dollars. So that's why a lot of real estate investors, they're duplexing it. And the city's allowing it because we have a shortage of homes. So they're allowing it as long as there's parking and everything, as long as you're not affecting the parking on the street. But the residential real estate, everybody needs a home. It's just like the pandemic. When that hit, everybody was buying toilet paper because everybody needs toilet paper. So I don't know what the issue was with the toilet paper. I go, why is everybody buying toilet paper? Is there going to be a shortage of this stuff? I don't know. Like everybody was worried about that. But again, everybody needs a roof over their head. And so there always will be people living in homes because that's what they need. Now it's just to basically able to afford it and be able to cover it. Now in Niagara, you still can do it. Hamilton, Toronto, it's tough. To buy a bungalow, to have an apartment in the basement, and it's tough. You got to really find good deals on that. Sometimes you have to renovate them yourself, and then convert them into 2-family homes. But yeah, I love the residential end of it. But a lot of the small investors, like the newbie investors, they're scared to buy the residential for investment because of what's going on with the landlord-tenant issue. They're not making it easy for the landlord. So, but they better do that because otherwise there's not going to be that many houses for sale, and everybody's going to be living in apartment buildings, and nobody wants to raise kids. You can't have barbecues in apartment buildings. You can't do any of that. So the landlord-tenant board should change, but otherwise 10 years from now, it's going to be a luxury just to even rent a house that you have in a residential neighborhood, so you can raise your family with a backyard, with a neighborhood and everything else like that. Otherwise, your kids are going to be playing stick hockey in the hallways of an apartment building.
I'm not going to get them to the NHL that way.
No.
Oh, This is the Golfi Real Estate Show, and our guest is Rob Golfi with us today. You can find out more about the Golfi team at robgolfi.com. But Rob is sticking around, so we hope you will too here on News Talk 610 CKTV.
I know the importance of hiring the best agents.
I'll take a photo of your house and post it on the World Wide Web.
Next,
our multi-million-dollar marketing system reaches tens of thousands of potential home buyers every day.
Go to robgolfi.com and put the best team to work for you.
And welcome back to the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm Steph Vivier, and our guest today is Rob Golfi. Just before the break, Rob broke down the latest real estate stats, and he and his team are always on top of exactly what's happening in the market minute to minute. One of the things that's been in the headlines, and Rob, you and I have talked about in the past few weeks, I mean, everyone's talking about it, right? These tariffs. Now, Canada got, I guess, a bit of a reprieve this week when tariff announcements were made, but we do still have tariffs on aluminum and steel and potash and the automotive industry. And that could become increasingly difficult for those who work in those industries, right? Oh,
yeah, absolutely. No kidding. Just to give you an idea. So there was an article in the Toronto Star, and basically what they're saying, and this is from Bank of Montreal, in an internal memo shared with brokers, BMO recently announced it would tighten lending criteria for self-employed borrowers working in aluminum and steel, as well as other high-risk industries, including manufacturing, farming, and natural resources. Now, what it is that, in other words, BMO is asking self-employed borrowers in high-risk industries, which can include, just like we said, farmers, truck drivers, and sole proprietors, to prove they can cover all housing costs with less of their income. So the one thing about the banks are, it's easier. Like a self-employed guy has a hard time getting a mortgage, but somebody that works for him has an easier time to get it. Can you believe that? And it's crazy. It is crazy. So it says BMO said that over 99% of mortgage applicants will not be impacted by the policy change. The technical policy adjustment you referenced is only one of many factors when considering the application of self-employed applicants. Each customer's situation is unique and personal, so loan applications are always considered individually. Now, BMO is also requiring at least one borrower have a minimum credit score of 750 and a gross debt service rate, which reflects debt servicing, just housing costs, and maximum 39%. So the Canada Mortgage and Housing restricts debt services ratio to 44% and 39%. So the one thing is that's gonna grow to they're saying 1%. I think it could be higher than that, but they're just allowing that now. How does Trump tariffs affecting people getting mortgages? Well, banks, like Bank of Montreal, regarding the aluminum industry now. How are the tariffs affecting the economy? Now, they're causing uncertainty. That's what's the slowdown in unit sales. There's a slowdown in unit sales. Prices could go up. People might lose their jobs, and it could slow down the economy. Now, what is the government doing about it? They're fighting back by putting their own tariffs on U.S. goods. They're trying to protect the Canadian workers. Now, what does this mean for Niagara? Now, Niagara has a lot of steel jobs, surprisingly. And if those jobs are at risk, people might spend less and the housing market could slow down. And it's kind of slowed down a little bit. There's a little bit of uncertainty. People are sitting back and waiting, even though the interest rates are coming down, but people are hesitant. Now, what could happen if the trade fight keeps going? And I think it's coming to a resolution right now. So, and I think they're taking it a little easier on Canada and Mexico right now, from what the news I'm hearing. Banks may continue to tighten mortgage rules. People could have more trouble buying homes, and the economy might take a hit. So, could we go into a recession because of it? There's a possibility, and people could lose their jobs because companies are going to be laying off workers just because they can't ship to the U.S. anymore, just because the U.S. is not buying because it's too expensive. It's affecting everything. But sales always happen no matter what the economy is. But sales are slower than normal. They're even less than they were last year, and that's kind of weird how that's going, and it's all have to do with probably Trump, putting uncertainty in the market.
Yeah, it's really tough for everyone. And yeah, certainly, Rob, we did get, I guess it's weird when we're saying that it's good news that we only have tariffs on aluminum, steel, and the automotive industry. But in terms of that sweeping 10% tariff for all countries, Canada and Mexico were saved from it this round this week, but we don't know, right? This is an uncertain, chaotic person that we're dealing with. So what would be your advice for those people working in those industries? You were talking about rentals. Maybe that's the answer, more renting.
Yeah, I think, if they're scared, and it depends on their financial situation, I don't know if they could sometimes, for them to keep their house and they're worried about their job. Sometimes it's good to, but don't sell your house. Maybe rent out your house and move in with family somehow, just temporarily, and see if you can, because once you move out or you sell your property, it's hard to save up to get back into the market. And that's the tough part. And I know financially, it's tough. They don't have the resources. They don't have the family support or help. And they're looking at their bills. It's just piling up, and it's just, there's only one way out, is to sell and then start fresh. I get it. There is. And I've been there. I'll tell you, I've been there. Like during the, when I was in business and there was a huge recession going on in the 90s, I've been there. I've been facing down, like, how am I going to get out of this situation? And I was just telling somebody, I says, nobody's been kicked to the curb like I have when it comes to dealing with businesses and people owing me money and me owing them government money and other people. Business is tough. But with people, with their personal finances, there are ways. And I know your money only goes so much, but if you could find a way to keep that property and rent it out, if the rent does cover it, because now you don't have to worry about your gas or your hydro, so because the renter is going to end up assuming that, so you just got to worry about your taxes and your mortgage and the insurance on the house. So you've got those three. If those three add up, that you can get rent, keep the house, move out, find a place that's cheaper to rent, so now you've got that covered. Then you rent someplace else temporarily, then things get back on track. You got your job, making more money, better job, whatever. And then a year later or so, you move back into your house, and then you're back on track. I'm telling you, there's a lot of people, they have to take a step backwards so they can move a step forwards, or two steps forward. And you have to do that. Get your, don't worry about your ego about selling or moving, and don't wait till the last minute. Pivot right away. Know what you're going to do, so that you don't get stuck in that deep hole of debt, and then there's no other choice but to sell. But if you can hang on to your property, go for it, because it'll definitely be worth it in the long run. Because I'll tell you, saving up again to buy a house, it takes years, and it affects your mind, affects how things are going. So but if you can keep the property, do it.
Is it difficult to put in like a basement suite, like maybe rent out part of the house? How open are cities to that?
I would do that. That's the first thing I would do is put a basement suite, and bungalows are the easiest ones to do that with, because they usually most bungalows have side entrances, and you can close in the side entrance to one that goes to the main floor, and the other one goes downstairs. But those are the best ones. You get to keep your house, and you get to keep the equity and everything, and your house price goes up in value. 10 years, you'll be going, wow, I survived that, and I made it through, and that's it. A lot of people, I know a lot of single people out there that own houses, townhouses. They rent out a room in their house. They rent out, to two different people. So they're collecting maybe $800 or $500, whatever, just to rent out the room. They have access to the kitchen and bathroom, their own bathroom. There's usually in a 3-bedroom house, there's an ensuite bath. So the homeowner they have their own bedroom and ensuite bath. So they got their privacy. And then the other 2 bedrooms, they rent them out, and those people share the other bathroom. And then they share the house. And you know what? If you have to do that for a couple of years, no big deal. You know what I mean? At least you're paying your mortgage, you're paying your bills and all that kind of stuff. That's the route I would take.
Yeah, get a little bit creative. And speaking of getting creative, some landlords there's some incentives out there depending on if this is where you want to rent, like months of free rent, complimentary Wi-Fi, Presto cards. I'm thinking this is for condos in Toronto. Is that what's happening?
It is. And this is why, I'll tell you, this is why I'm not a big condo investor. But there was an article in the paper, and it says that a luxury building is offering up to 2 months of free rent and years of complimentary Wi-Fi and property management company it was a property management downtown Toronto. Now 3 months free rent on a 2-year lease. Yeah, hey. And but what they're offering, like their experts are saying, apartment operators for buildings old and new are offering the deals to attract new tenants as they compete with thousands of vacant units built in recent years. A lot of these units they were coming up. And they can't, they have to do something. So while condo landlords have dropped prices to attract renters, apartment corporations have resisted dropping prices across the board and instead have looked for other ways to sweeten the deal. But experts anticipate a new supply to dwindle in the coming years. They say these deals are unlikely to last for certain units. Now, we've seen projects offer 1 year of free storage lockers or parking spots. They're offering like a what do you call it, like a bus card or whatever, like so that they can get to the gym or even whatever. But when times come for a rent increase, the rent increase will be on the base rent, not the discounted price. For example, if rent is $2,500 per month, but it's $2,100 with the discount, a rent-controlled building could add the maximum legal rent increase to the $2,500 price rather than the $2,100. That means that with this year's guideline increase of 2.5%, next year they will have to pay $2,562. So yeah, so there's, you know what I mean? Like I get it. I'll tell you, I'm not a big advocate for condo rentals because it's hard to cover. It's hard to cover mortgage, even when the interest rates are down. Hard to cover the mortgage, the taxes, the condo fees, and the insurance. And so now, because there's a huge influx of condos that are being finished right now, and these condos started 3-4 years ago. So now they're closing. So there's a huge mass of available condos on the market, and a lot of these investors that bought into these condos, they have to rent them out because they can't sell them because they're worth less than what they paid for them. And so that's why there's a lot of good deals there for tenants that if they want to look for a condo to rent.
And typically, how long will landlords have something out there until they start doing this kind of thing, offering freebies?
You know what? When they can't rent it for about, once they hit the third month, then they know they got problems and they've got to do something. And so they either take the loss and drop the rent and just take a loss. And some of these landlords are taking a loss of $500 a month. So that's $6,000 a year that they're losing on this condo. So after 10 years, that could be $60,000, right? But hopefully the value of that goes up more than $60,000. But they get the tax deduction of the $6,000 against their income, depending if they're under a corporation or they're under their personal name. They will get the tax deduction on it. But yeah, but it's still coming out of their pocket. Now, if you have 10 of these and 10 of these every month, you're losing $500 a month on each one. That's $6,000 a month you're losing. That could be a tough thing. You may, a lot of people can't afford to do that. And a lot of these investors, they jumped in late, because they're hearing their friends, hey, you got to buy a condo, condo, invest. Oh, you can flip it before you take possession. Yeah, a lot of people are in that situation. Now they have to unload it, and they can't even afford to even close on it because the banks aren't giving them the money for it. And now they're either they're going to give it up to the developer, which they've got probably $50,000 to $100,000 deposit in there. They're going to lose their money.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot to consider there. And as you point out, it's, we always think of landlords as being these like wealthy people, but it's just everyday people. So it's not sort of a faceless corporation.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're listening to the Golfi Real Estate Show. And if you want to get a hold of the Golfi team, you can do that by checking out their website, robgolfi.com. That's GOLFI. Or you can give them a call at 905-641-0308. Rob Golfi is our guest today, and he's going to stick around. Hope you will too here on News Talk 610 CKTB.
I was just worried about not getting enough money for the house.
We get that attracting the highest offer for your home is your top priority. Hey, it's ours too. Our one-of-a-kind marketing system will get you top dollar.
Golfi gets it sold.
And welcome back to the Golfi Real Estate Show. I'm Steph Vivier. Rob Golfi is with us today talking all things real estate. We've been talking a lot about renters and landlords, but we had a pretty brutal storm this week, Rob. I know people in Lincoln, Grimsby, they got hit very hard with the flooding Wednesday into Thursday morning. And we've had these kind of like crazy storms. They call them, 100-year storms, but they're happening seems like every few months at this point. So we wonder about insurance here, and when it comes to trees that will get knocked down in big windstorms, who's actually responsible to remove them? If you've ever had to cut a tree or remove a tree, it's not cheap.
It isn't cheap, but the sad thing is if your neighbor's tree, like it could be a big oak tree, and it drops down on your property, crashes your fence, crashes your shed, or even takes part of your house away, who's responsible for it? Your insurance company is going to pay for it. And the reason why the Insurance Bureau of Canada made it this way is that because there's too many disputes. Even though it's the neighbor's tree and it lands, the battles, there were so many battles. So the Insurance Bureau of Canada implemented that if a tree falls down on your property, your insurance company will cover it. And a lot of people find that hard to believe. Like you can go up to your property line and shave that tree right up, straight up in sky, so it doesn't hang over on your side. But there could be a limb that will, be heavy that can crash on your side on that tree, but it is the responsibility of the homeowner that lands on. That could cause some problems, but that is a huge issue, especially in older neighborhoods with these big, massive old trees that were planted 50 to 75 years ago, and they're and what happens is a lot of these trees. And I don't get this. The city, they plant these trees right on the boulevards, let's say, or at the end of your front lawn, which, partial of your front lawn is owned by the city that you manage and take care of. And they plant a tree there because they want to make sure there's a lot of trees planted in the neighborhood. But they plant it just right underneath the hydro wires, especially in the old neighborhoods. But now, everything's buried. So now they got to trim around it. So it makes the trees go wide and limbs, and then what happens is they end up becoming heavy on one side, and that's when they break during storms with heavy storms. But yeah, you're responsible for it, and nothing you can do, and it could affect a lot of different things. So I've seen people have trimmed a tree straight up, like it looks like there's a wall now along there, and just cut it down. And I did see a school board, a school cut a neighbor's tree down. They actually went on their side because it was actually hanging over without the permission of them cutting it. And I don't know what the outcome of that was. They went in and just chopped it down, and because I don't know, it was just overhanging. And the school was sold to a developer, and I don't know what happened of it, but they shouldn't have done that. so
right.
You got to go, if you're going on someone's property to chop a tree down, you should ask permission. You don't wait till that neighbor's gone, and then all of a sudden you come back and the tree's gone. That could cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really, emotional thing, and then they'll get, legal involved, right? So it's, and then you have to live there, or I guess move at some point. So one of the quickest ways to ticking off your neighbor is definitely cutting a tree without talking to them.
Oh yeah, no kidding. Oh yeah.
speaking of neighbors, you want to really think about it before you sue your neighbors. Have you heard about this, Rob? You're in the real estate game, always talking to clients and previous clients, and they find out different things about their neighbors. Have you ever been part of one of these disputes?
I haven't been part of it. I haven't sued a neighbor, and I'm sure it's happened. Suing a neighbor, it's got to be pretty bad. It's got to be pretty bad, and if it gets to that point, you almost want to get out of that neighborhood, get away from them, and because negative energy is not good for people's health, and but it could cause a lot of problems. So I'm going to talk about the negative about suing a neighbor, but I mean it's got to get pretty ugly, but. Even if you do win and you sue your neighbor, you still got to live next door. The lawsuit creates permanent bad blood. It just does. Now, some people you just can't reason with, regardless. They're just that personality, and they just like battles, and they don't care if you like them or not. They thrive on that. The time, like there's a lot of people that I even not as neighbors that I sued, and I sued people before, and I did sue one person, and the cost is insane. It's not even worth it. It's insane. It's got to be. You almost have to sue if they're in like $500,000 or whatever, because and if they don't have it, you're not going to get it. So sometimes it's not even worth it. You just got to lick your wounds and just walk away, and hopefully karma gets that person if that person did something really negative to you. But legal fees can add up, and court cases take time, and sometimes months or even years. So be careful when you're going to sue somebody. I mean, if it's a small thing in small claims court, that's easy peasy. Like, I mean, if it's under 15 or it's under 25,000, that's the way I would do it. If somebody owed me 50,000, I would go to court. The maximum you can sue in small claims is 25. I would go after him for the 25,000. That's it. I would go to the judge. He owes me 50, but because this court is only allowed to sue up to 25, I'm here for the 25. He's getting a break, and that's what I would do. Unpredictable outcome. Courts don't always rule in favor. You could end up with no compensation or out-of-pocket money. The cost to sue. So you got to be very, very careful. I've spent a lot of money on suing somebody, and I realized after that it's not worth suing anybody anymore. Public records. Lawsuits are a matter of public record, and it could affect your property's value or your reputation. So let's say if something, whatever the lawsuit is, it could be a swale in the backyard, it could be whatever. I mean, most people don't find out about it, but when you move into that neighborhood, you will find out about it because the neighbors will tell you, hey, so-and-so sued this guy here or whatever. Emotional stress definitely is, it does take a toll. And I try to walk away and eliminate emotional stress or on anything, because it's not worth it, because it'll suck your time, your mind, and everything else, and stress you out, and it'll cause you health issues. So suing somebody sometimes is just walk away from it, accept it, and just learn from it. That's all. But that's the negative. Now, the positive of suing somebody is if you can't resolve with the person, try to make it, try to work it out with somebody. Do so. You could receive financial compensation for damages, property damage, trespassing, noise, or whatever. Setting a legal precedent. It might prevent future issues. Yes. And especially if your neighbor has caused repeated problems. Protecting your rights. Sometimes you have no choice but to take legal action to protect your property or peace. There are issues sometimes you have no choice but to sue. There's court-ordered actions might order your neighbor to stop certain behavior, building encroachments, or noise and harassment. So for me to sue my neighbor, it's got to affect my property. Maybe he's got a stream running through his property that goes through mine, and he stops it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like there could be things like that. He could be doing something that environmentally is not good. And I'll tell you, I had one time, one guy, like I have all these cedar bushes behind my house. You really can't see the other side. So I was like digging around, and I saw the like oil filter, oil container, and everything. So the neighbor behind me was changing the oil in their car and dumping it in the bushes on my property. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I went and knocked on their door. I went around. I say, hey, I go, we got a major issue here. I go, you guys are changing your oil and dumping it on my property. And I don't even know if the lady at the house, who's the mother or the husband was doing it, like the son or the husband was doing it. I says, if I call Ministry of Environment, they're going to be all over you. And I says, it's not going to be good. So please, can you stop doing that? And that was it. Never saw any more oil cans or anything like that. But that is an issue, right? And so you don't want something like that happening to you. And but they stopped, right? Because I was nice about it. I was nice about it. I went there, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey, listen, like, do you see this? What you guys are doing?" And she was. I don't know if she was surprised. Either surprised me knocking on the door, or surprised that she didn't know that was happening. One or the other. And but it did stop. And she knows that I'm looking in behind the bushes because I can see what's going on. But
yeah, I mean, every once in a while you just have to do that, right? You just got to go over, have a conversation, and suing's not the first thing. And it's kind of funny that we should remind people of that, but in this day and age, we're reluctant sometimes to go have those conversations.
And everybody's had a bad neighbor. I'll tell you, like, I mean, everybody's had a bad neighbor at one time or another. Now, I've said this I think even the last couple of weeks. If you live in a neighborhood and the neighbors are great and things are going well, stay. I'm telling you, stay. Now, if you live, and I know you're doing well now, you can afford a bigger house, fantastic. I get it, but I'll tell you, to find great neighbors, like let's say if you live in a cul-de-sac, find great neighbors, and I would stay there as long as you can. Once one neighbor leaves, okay, now it's time to go because the dynamics of the neighborhood's going to change, that little court area. But if you got neighbors, like I have one friend, he lived in a neighborhood, raised his family there. Some of the neighbors were not really the greatest. He lives in a neighborhood now, like it's a great court area. He's loving it. He says, I'll never move from here. Are you kidding me? I says, everybody's nice. Nobody's, upset if they walk on your lawn. Like, it's just everybody's good. Like, and that's what you want. Everybody on the same page. Everybody wants to get along. It's not like there's somebody that has, something going on in their life and they're making everybody else life miserable around. But yeah, like it becomes thing, somebody's barking dog becomes a major issue. Somebody's, dog that, like it could be the kids, threw their Frisbee on your lawn, they walk on it. Like those are the things that cause problems in neighborhoods. They do. And, I mean, I've lived in 4 different neighborhoods, and one neighbor was, they're older, and they didn't like the kids running across the lawn. So, so you're yelling at your kids saying, hey, stay away. These people, they don't like us. They don't like you guys going on there. And you know what I mean? But you know how kids are. They want to taunt. And then
well, as soon as you tell them not to do something, then they're going to do it.
They're going to do it. So if you tell them not to take the garbage out, but that doesn't work on that end. They don't. They don't work that way. Yeah, don't take the garbage out. Okay, no problem. but don't run across the lawn, the neighbor's lawn next door, and then they run across the lawn. So it's just it's funny. They got selective hearing. Kids, they pick that up real quick and young. But yeah. No, be careful. I'll tell you, I've sued people in small claims court, and those work out well, very inexpensive. But when you want to go big time suing, it's not worth it. Your legal fees will end up being more than what you're suing for, and it's not worth it. Even if it's $200,000, and you may not even get it. Like if your legal fees could be $50,000, you'll be awarded the $50,000 in legal fees. And then maybe.
But if win. And these things go on for years and years. I think I heard something like the average court case in Ontario is about 8 years.
Yeah,
something like that.
It has. Yeah. Like you almost forget about that. It's still going on. Like,
Yeah,
it's
and then
like,
every once in a while you get a bill from the lawyer.
yeah, the lawyer. Yeah, you're reminded. Oh yeah, we had to send a letter out like 3 years later. What? That's still going on. I thought that was dropped. So
Right.
Oh,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
it's a lot. No, that's good advice. And sometimes if people don't know how it works, it's good to have that inside track. Well, Rob, it's been a pleasure as always. Learned so much on the show today. Thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you.
This has been the Golfi Real Estate Show. You can get a hold of the #1 REMAX team in Canada at robgolfi.com. That's GOLFI, or give them a call at 905-641-0308, 905-641-0308. Thanks for listening. This is News Talk 610 CKTB.